Hello and welcome to Original Soundchat, where video game music is a work of art. On each episode, it's our goal to help you learn about two soundtracks from the world of games, as well as the people, stories, and critical tracks behind them. My name is Joe DeVader.
And I'm Peter Spezia. We're brought to you by Anonymous Dinosaur and Rhymes with Asia. It's time to appreciate great OSTs and the games that they come from without getting too bogged down in music theory. Up first this week for our two games is 2020's Cyberpunk 2077, the adaptation of the classic tabletop RPG set in Night City, where V must find a way to get Johnny Silverhand out of their mind before it kills them.
Following that is the bite-sized Cyberpunk RPG about a hacker in Bright City, working to take down a corrupt company and find her long-lost father, 2022's Jack Move.
Night City, Bright City. I mean, you can't go wrong there. Aside from that, these two games being based in that cyberpunk subgenre, a pretty good pairing of games. One game we found a lot of information about, the other, not so much.
Yeah. See if you can guess which one.
It's not like there were news stories all the time about Cyberpunk 2077 for a time, and even this week, fitting to bring it up. Well, Joe, how are you doing? What are you playing?
Well, I finished Anonymous Code. It was pretty good. I do have a problem that its main mechanic at certain points does kind of feel like I guess I'll mash the button until it says I did it right. Which is unfortunate, but that's really the only big problem I had with it. I played Venba, which has shown up in a couple of indie directs and a couple other places. It was a short little game about an Indian family and cooking Indian food, making sort of a puzzle out of that, which was neat.
I've heard that game has similar vibes to Florence.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's about an immigrant, like two immigrants from India living in Canada and having a child there, and like the sort of disconnect between those two's culture and such.
Yeah, that's I heard good things about it, but yeah, it has kind of flown under the radar a little bit recently.
Well, it's on Game Pass, and it's only like an hour and a half long if people want to check it out.
Oh, there you go.
And then from there, I started the Pokemon DLC, finally, after buying it like 3 weeks ago. Or 2 weeks ago, probably more so. Yeah, it's weird that this DLC is built so that you can go at any time, which is odd because part 2 is going to be post-game only. They've already confirmed that. And the reason that that's weird, the levels scale with you up to like level 60. So all the wild Pokemon and such, and the trainers Pokemon and everything, they're like level 60, 65. But it is a huge disconnect when the rival girl says, "Oh, I'm going to grind you into the dirt," and then throws out her level 60 Poochyena.
Oh.
And then I throw out my level 87 Tinkaton and destroy her.
Yeah.
Or her brother throwing out a level 60 Sentret. It's like, cool. I kind of feel like I'm just bullying these people now. But it's been interesting. I'm trying to catch a Mienfoo. I know where they are, but they won't spawn.
And from what I've heard, the performance issues are not better.
They sure aren't. I also, while going up to an area past a fountain, like a fountain built into the side of a mountain, like made out of rocks, it looks like it's from a different video game than the cliff it is built into.
Rad.
It is. Yeah, they have not really improved much in that category since launch. Boy, howdy.
Well, for me, my fiance and I have continued a couple Persona nights, and so I have made more progress in Persona 4 Golden, mostly just skipping through all the cutscenes. I just watched her play the game, but I am at the midway part. So let's say we cleared the Rise dungeon, and then we're at the next murder, essentially, but we have yet to go to the next dungeon after that. We're kind of at that point right now for when I'm playing Persona 4 Golden on Vita. Continuing Final Fantasy 16 as well. I beat Kupka. Well, we still have one more big encounter for us in the desert, and I'm super excited to see how that develops. Not really any composer follow-up news this week. I don't think it's even worth really devoting a whole segment to it. TGS stuff is happening, like Capcom had a showcase devoted to it. So I'm sure a whole bunch of things popped up, but one thing that caught our eye is the official release date for Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Trilogy, or I'm sure it's got a big old name in Japan. I just saw the poster for it in Japan, and it's like Gyakuten Saiban 456, and then like a subtitle, so it's like, oh, okay. That, because it was 1, 2, 3 for the original trilogy, so it makes sense. But January 25th, 2024, which I think is also the same day as Like a Dragon Ishin.
Oh, Gaiden, the man who erased. No, it's that comes out this year, but I think you might be thinking of Like a Dragon 8, Infinite Wealth.
That's the
which
one.
Which also comes out very close to the side game.
Oh, that's the one. Yep. And I think that also has like a January 25th. Like that kind of week there, going along into February with Persona 3 Reload, that's getting super busy.
Sure is.
And a lot of good music sure to come out from that. I said I wouldn't make a segment out of it, and then I did. So there you go. That's what happens when you talk a lot, I suppose. Anyway, let's get to talking about our first game this week. The bulk of the research. I'm so sorry. I'm looking at our outline. It's like I have paragraphs upon paragraphs, and I'm just kind of dwarfing Joe's part of the show here. But let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077. Before we get into one of the most anticipated games in recent memory, which then fell completely on its face, I feel like we need to define Cyberpunk. And Cyberpunk is a subgenre of science fiction that is defined as, quote, set in a dystopian futuristic setting that tends to focus on a combination of low life and high tech, featuring futuristic technological and scientific achievements such as artificial intelligence and cyberware, juxtaposed with societal collapse, dystopia, or decay. So, things are really cool technologically, but man, at what cost has it done to society? That kind of thing. So that has existed as a subgenre. A lot of people point to like Blade Runner as kind of being like I want to kind of like emulate that style as something that really caught on. And then we have to talk about Cyberpunk, the role-playing game of the dark future, which is a tabletop RPG that was created by Mike Pondsmith. It was first released in 1988 as Cyberpunk 2013. Oh, that's kind of weird to look back on and see.
Oh, that's my favorite thing.
I know, and it gets worse. This tabletop RPG meant for pen and paper and things like that. It takes place in the fictional Night City, which is situated on the west coast of the United States between Los Angeles and San Francisco. A little closer to San Francisco, if we're being honest. With a population of 5 million, it presents a stratified society of gang warfare, corporate rivalries, and political machinations in which the players must survive. Now, the tabletop game has had 3 released iterations since 1988's 2013. There was 1990's Cyberpunk 2020. Again, ugh. 2005's Cyberpunk v3.0. And 2020's Cyberpunk Red.
I see they learned to stop putting dates in there.
Yeah, gets a little too real when you're catching up on the real dates. Although I guess 2020 exists in universe in 2045, so, there's another shot out into the future. So Cyberpunk 2077, released December 10th, 2020, for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, and Google Stadia. Oh, that's right. That existed and was a thing.
This is the second time Stadia has come up in a conversation for me in the past week. That's weird.
It almost should be forgotten to time, but we'll bring it reeling on back. An updated version of Cyberpunk 2077 for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S released last year on February 15th, 2022. It was developed by CD Projekt Red and published by CD Projekt. Look, in the past, I think I've tried to say it as CD Projekt Red because I'm like, it's Polish. That's how they say their J's. And I want to be like, loyal to the source, essentially, right? But as I see more and more things like, different documentaries of like covering like the history of The Witcher and things like that, for Americans to just call it CD Projekt Red and like they're okay with it. Okay, I guess it is CD Projekt Red. I'll take the L. I'll take the L on that one. So it's a learning period for me here.
Hey, if it helps, I've also been saying CD Projekt for a while. So,
right? Like you're trying to be like right, but when you're not, adjust and change, I suppose. Cyberpunk 2077 is a first-person action role-playing game set in an open world, though you can change the camera perspective to third-person when you're driving vehicles around the world. And you can play this game as a shooter, be more of a stealth melee player, or even as a pacifist. You can beat the game without killing anyone. You can customize the look of your protagonist. Then the stat categories, which are body, intelligence, reflexes, technical, and cool, are influenced by the character classes that the players assume, which are Netrunner, which kind of caters more towards the hacking side of things, Techie, which makes you good at machinery, and Solo, which makes you better in combat. You buy cyberware implants and get military-grade abilities and weapons through the black market. You can interact with characters through a dialogue tree, complete quests, and pour the experience points that you gain into a skill tree, etc., like you do in most open-world RPGs. The story of Cyberpunk 2077. You play as V, a citizen of Night City, in the year 2077, with 3 different possible starting life paths. You can be a nomad, a street kid, or a corpo. And regardless of how you start, you get to one point where you're presented with a job to steal a biochip known as the Relic from Arasaka Corporation. V acquires the relic, but the plan goes awry when they witness the murder of the Megacorp's leader, Saburo Arasaka, at the hands of his treacherous son, Yorinobu. Yorinobu covers up the murder as poisoning and triggers a security sweep where the relic's protective case is damaged during V's escape, forcing them to insert the biochip into the cyberware in their head. Well, this does not go well with the man who hired V for the job. He shoots V and leaves them for dead. But upon awakening, V is haunted by the digital ghost of war veteran turned iconic rock star, Johnny Silverhand. Or basically just Keanu Reeves. It's Keanu Reeves who plays Johnny Silverhand. For real, for real. And Johnny Silverhand is believed to have died in 2023. Oh, that's weird and fitting. During a thermonuclear attack on Arasaka Tower. V learns that Dex's bullet somehow triggered resurrection nanotech on the biochip, repairing the damage to V's brain, but also starting an irreversible process to overwrite their memories with those of Johnny, whose memory engram is stored on the chip. And this leaves V only a few weeks before this process fully completes. The biochip cannot be removed, so V must find a way to remove Johnny and survive. Big questions. What happened in Johnny's past and in 2023 that caused Johnny to be stored on a biochip? And will V be able to extract Johnny from their mind? And what are the ramifications of that? So, Joe, here's what I'll ask you. What are our experiences with Cyberpunk 2077?
I watched the anime, which I assume you will get into later. I liked it. It was good. And I've seen the recent interview with Idris Elba where I think IGN had to explain to him that nude mods will be made. He's like laughing along with them telling him that, and then he says like, they didn't inform me of this, and like gives this side look over to somebody.
To the PR person.
And it's and he asked how does Keanu feel about this? And they're like, oh, he thinks it's funny. So like, I don't know. Idris Elba sure didn't seem like he was aware that those kinds of things exist. So that was fun. That's basically, and I watched the disaster unfold. That was fun.
Yeah, it sure was a disaster to just see from the sidelines because, that sure was a game that I was interested in. Like a lot of people, it had a whole lot of hype going into it. But as it started to roll out, it was, I bought it. I put money down because I wanted to play it. But as you start to see the headlines, it's like, maybe this isn't it. And I bought it on Xbox. I don't even know if they had like a refund policy on that platform. So like I just held on to it, and it's been sitting on my hard drive for a long, long time until a few months ago when I started to play it, and like the first hour and a half didn't grab me. Something about the way the gameplay felt. I'm like, I don't know. I'm playing other things, and it just kind of fell to the wayside. Now, there's a whole new update out with the aforementioned DLC that Idris Elba is involved with, and it's changed a whole lot. To quote Mega64, now is the game's play date. Now is when, like, it should have been released if they had the appropriate time put it. Almost 3 years later, Cyberpunk 2077 is now apparently good for, updated platforms. Still don't play it on Xbox One. Don't play it on PlayStation 4. That's a lost cause. Some will argue that, the PC version was good at launch. Okay, great. But now it's apparently good, except for my brother, who's been playing it for the last couple months, and he's been enjoying it and putting time into it. And he stopped before the point of no return to finish up some side missions and things like that. So he's like right at the end, right? And they changed so much that it basically ruined his build and how he plays. I know you can respec and all that, but he's like, I was trying to go like stealth and all that, and they just like totally ruined all that. And so he's finding all these things that he doesn't like about it because he's put in so much time into it recently. For someone like me, seeing these changes, it's like maybe I made the right call to hold off and maybe just do a whole new playthrough sometime soon. It was certainly neat to learn more about Cyberpunk 2077, and I'm excited to bring that all to you today. If this was just like something that was off your radar, it's like, oh yeah, what a mess, but you're still kind of remotely curious. Let's get into it because it starts after the game The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings released from CD Projekt Red. And so the developers approached Mike Pondsmith, the writer of the Cyberpunk tabletop RPG, and he's the founder of Art Halsorian Games. They approached him in early 2012, sending him a copy of The Witcher 2. And Mike Pondsmith was impressed with the studio's unparalleled knowledge of the Cyberpunk universe at the time. So Pondsmith and CD Projekt Red reached an agreement to license Cyberpunk's story from the year 2077 onward to CD Projekt Red, while Pondsmith retained the rights for media in the Cyberpunk universe set up until the year 2077. Why that year? I don't know, but that was the point. And to ensure Cyberpunk's story remained cohesive during development, Pondsmith served as a consultant on Cyberpunk 2077. Pondsmith had previously worked at Microsoft developing video games in the early 2000s. One of the games he worked on was Crimson Skies. So this experience was actually really valuable to CD Projekt, compared to Witcher writer Andrzej Sapkowski's general indifference towards the studio when they were adapting his works. Development started on the studio's internal Red Engine 3, though development struggles with the shift to first person, and this was done, quote, to immerse the player further in the world and hone in on the megacorporation motif. But this was a big shift for how CD Projekt developed their games, and so the move to first person necessitated a new iteration of the game engine, and so they would develop on Red Engine 4. Suffice to say, it was such an issue that CD Projekt Red games going forward will be using Unreal Engine 5. A key source of inspiration for the team was Blade Runner, which environment designer Hiroshi Sakakibara says, it is the Bible of all cyberpunk. Other sources of inspiration for the team include the manga and anime series Ghost in the Shell, and other video games like System Shock and the first part of Deus Ex. To develop the world building in Night City, the team used 4 distinct visual styles. There's austere entropism, which projects necessity over style, colorful kitsch, which is all about style over substance, imposing neo-militarism, which is about substance over style, and finally, opulent neo-kitsch, which is all about style and substance. And they use these styles to explain what happened to the world prior to the events of the game. Like other CD Projekt games, the script was first written in Polish and then translated into English, which was used as then the base for the other localizations. The main protagonist character that you assume, V, is voiced by Gavin Dre and Jeremy Lee for the male and female versions of V, respectively. So if you want Makoto Nijima to be V, go with female V. Keanu Reeves was approached in July 2018 for the role of Johnny Silverhand, and even though he was new to the video game format, he had some previous experience with motion capture performance through The Matrix. Cyberpunk 2077 was announced in May 2012, with a teaser trailer shown in January 2013, ending famously with the text, "Coming when it's ready." Then, after years, a trailer at E3 2018 to end Microsoft's show. It was a big deal. First time seeing anything about Cyberpunk 2077 since that teaser trailer. It was a whole, hacking the end of Microsoft's show kind of deal. But even more so, since 2013, CD Projekt Red had set the gaming world on fire with the success of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. And so the industry, the players, the world, all ravenous for Cyberpunk 2077. An initial release date of April 16th, 2020 was revealed at E3 2019, but then the game would be delayed 3 times while being pushed back 8 months overall. It even gained some infamy with the text on yellow screen bad news social media post.
Forgot about that.
Oh yeah, and other studios would kind of go off it, but I feel like that was kind of the start of it, with the blank color, big text block, bad news, sorry. Also, I'm sure that something else that happened in 2020 really didn't help with finishing development in a timely manner either.
I don't remember anything happening in 2020. 2020 didn't actually happen.
It's all a blur. Yes, Cyberpunk didn't even release in 2020. Well, what? Famously, the video game reviewed all over the place, depending on what platform you wanted to play it on. It has a Metacritic average of 86 on PC, but 57 on PlayStation 4 and 61 on Xbox One. For the next-gen update, it has a 75 on PS5 and an 87 on Xbox Series X. It received praise from critics for its narrative, setting, and graphics. However, some of its gameplay elements received mixed responses, while its themes and representation of transgender characters received some criticism. It was also widely criticized for bugs, particularly in the console versions, which suffered from major performance problems. It's not just that the game ran poorly, it ran so poorly that it caused controversies. The game gave a journalist from Game Informer a seizure with its red and white flashing lights during the game's brain dance mechanic, which they then had to tone back. Sony removed the game from the PlayStation Store from December 2020 to June 2021, while CD Projekt rectified some of the performance problems. CD Projekt also became subject to investigations and class action lawsuits for their perceived attempts at downplaying the severity of the technical problems before release, though these were ultimately cleared with what else? Money! A settlement of $1.85 million US. And yet, with about a year removed, the game was actually nominated at award shows. It was nominated for Best Score in Music and Best Role-Playing Game at the Game Awards 2021. It was nominated for 4 BAFTAs, including Artistic Achievement, Narrative, Performer in a Leading Role for Jeremy Lee as V, and Performer in a Supporting Role with Carla Tassara as Judy. And it was nominated for Role-Playing Game of the Year at the DICE Awards. The game has sold 20 million copies as of September 2022. Cyberpunk 2077 saw an increase in the number of units sold during the year 2022 of up to 18% year over year, with 94% of sales being digital. And this increase was partially attributed to the release of the Netflix anime series Cyberpunk Edgerunners, which garnered positive reviews from both critics and fans. Also, there was a game update that launched alongside it, and it included material from the series. In addition to the Edgerunners Netflix series and all of the free updates to the game in an attempt to make up for everything, a paid expansion, Phantom Liberty, is set to release today as of episode release, September 26th, 2023, on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S. So, no last-gen console for you. Yes, it does star Idris Elba. And it goes along with a version 2.0 update for all platforms to work in some of the changes from the expansion into the base game. So they say it's a patch note list that is bigger than Atom Smasher, which is a big endgame boss. But yeah, revamped skill trees, everything is changed. Now is the play date. Maybe if you're interested, go play Cyberpunk now, if you hadn't before. And Phantom Liberty is reviewing well, with Metacritic averages in the high 80s. What is the future of Cyberpunk 2077 beyond all of this mess? You think, oh, we're not touching that again. No. A sequel was also announced in October 2022 as part of a wider CD Projekt roadmap plan. It will be developed by CD Projekt North America, who has offices in Vancouver and Boston. It's currently known as Project Orion, and it will be started with several core Cyberpunk 2077 team members after work on Phantom Liberty is complete. After all, over in Poland, Red is working on the next Witcher game, the first of a new trilogy set on Unreal Engine 5, as well as a new IP altogether. Okay, so all of that with the mess of Cyberpunk 2077, let's talk about the music and one of its composers, and that would be P.T. Adamczyk. Piotr Adamczyk was born in Warsaw, Poland, but he credits himself as P.T. Adamczyk. He says, quote, "When I was 6, I discovered Metallica. My parents sent me to piano lessons, but I didn't really want to go because there was no keyboard player in Metallica. My biggest passion at the time was drums. I've been drumming since I was 8 years old, but I actually got a proper drum set when I was 13 and started taking drum lessons. Then I started to play in local bands from Warsaw, but it never occurred to me that I could become a composer and make a career out of it. When that did occur to him, he decided to relocate to Los Angeles in 2015, where he graduated from the world-renowned Scoring for Motion Pictures and Television program at USC, the University of Southern California. And this is a program that he spent 2 years just to prepare for his application. So all the hard work paid off. He studied with Gary Scheinman for a year. We talked about Gary Scheinman when we brought up the original BioShock on the show. And during his intensive studies, he continued working on short films and writing music for various commercials, including ones for Nike, Toyota, Valentine's, and Virgin Mobile. And then he says, quote, "And then I came across Marcin Przyjbowicz's post that there is a new slot for a composer over at CDPR. So I applied and I got the gig." He joined CD Projekt Red in 2017. When it comes to writing music, he says, quote, "The process is always different, but I think the one constant is that I try to find instruments that would give me the sound that I think works for the project in a particular scene." After he notes how difficult RPGs are to write for because of how complex and varied the different possibilities are, he says, quote, "To be honest, I would love to work on a game like Uncharted, a 30-hour experience that's kind of linear, where you have those arenas and then you move on to cinematic segments. This is really a dream of ours," end quote. And you can follow him on Twitter at PT Adamczyk. That's PTADAMCZYK. His discography mostly involves working on games from CD Projekt Red, including Gwent, the Witcher card game, Thronebreaker, The Witcher Tales, and Cyberpunk 2077. But he's one of the lead composers along with another composer on the Phantom Liberty DLC, so he kind of took the reins on that one. And he also did some additional arrangements on Far Cry 5. So the music in CD Projekt Red is composed by Marcin Przyjbowicz, who we talked about on episode 38 for his work on The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. There's also P.D. Adamczyk and Paul Leonard Morgan. Adamczyk had a few quotes about developing the music for Cyberpunk 2077. Again, it was one of the biggest games out there, so there were different interviews out there. He says, quote, "The Witcher 3 was notorious for having the music on all the time, and that was something Marcin really wanted to change in the design of Cyberpunk, and he was really keen about learning to use the silence." Also notes that, quote, "I would say that one of the most important lessons that we learned during Cyberpunk is that repetition of musical themes and repetition of musical colors create continuity throughout the story. And the second lesson I personally learned is that by doing that and having those repeating segments, sometimes you don't need to go very emotional to achieve a very profound effect. Sometimes just playing a few notes of this character's theme is enough to awaken the connection that the player has with this character. You don't need to bring out the orchestra and play a big melody. Sometimes you just need to push the player in the right direction and the game will do the work for you. Instruments that were used for Cyberpunk 27 were, quote, those boutique modular synthesizers, analog groove boxes, and unusual stuff like that, which is unlike classic keyboard or MIDI controllers. They were great at conveying the atmosphere of cyberware, so this music felt appropriate for the game. Beyond the score, multiple licensed artists contributed to Cyberpunk 2077's soundtrack for the in-game, in-universe radio stations. Hip-hop duo Run the Jewels, composed of rappers LP and Killer Mike, wrote No Save Point for the game's soundtrack, which is a track that vividly critiques the socio-economic state of Night City. Other contributors include Canadian musician Grimes, known in-game as Lizzy Wizzy, Swedish band Refused as Samurai, American rapper A$AP Rocky, English musician Gazelle Twin, known as Trash Generation, and American musician Ilan Rubin, among others. So yes, a lot going on musically for Cyberpunk 2077, and we'll try to catch all of it, or at least the top points here in the 5 critical tracks for the game. We start with, I would say, the main theme of Cyberpunk 2077, and this track is called V. This piece is composed by Marcin Prisbivovich, and it is the title screen theme. That big drop, I believe, syncs up when you press start on the title screen, whereas it's just, logo splash and like press start to continue. It's a really cool way to kind of drop yourself into the world with this grimy, grungy sound that really has some neat instruments going with it. Right before the drop, you kind of hear this wow, wow. It almost sounds like an alarm or a siren in the crime-infested streets of Night City. Just a really cool sound overall. A lot of the guitars and the synths going together really, really sets that just cool atmosphere. If you're going to have an ability, the set of abilities that's part of your cool stat, the music's got to be cool, and I think this kind of sets that right away.
I was trying to think of what this reminds me of. It kind of reminds me of Doom.
Yeah, absolutely. Not the last time that we'll make that comparison, but I'm glad you picked up on that.
Yeah, it sounds extremely cool, and I do agree that the drop happening when you hit start sounds rad. You don't get title screens that do that kind of thing very often, but when they do, it's always appreciated.
Absolutely, yeah. Go from the kind of lighter, more atmospheric to the in-your-face, pumping with that energy. Really, really good track. But it continues in track number 2, critical track number 2 for Cyberpunk 2077. This is called The Rebel Path. All of the tracks in the Critical 5 from here on out are composed by P.T. Adamczyk. And this one is definitely a fan favorite. I guess, I have to say I guess, because again, I only got so far. V, the title screen, I know that. I have firsthand experience with that. I didn't even get to the part of Johnny Silverhand being introduced. And maybe that was on me for not getting that far. But apparently when he is introduced in the game, it's done with a really cool scene that this music plays in, and it ties up. I guess it becomes his leitmotif, and a really cool drop. Again, these drops in these tracks are just something special, especially when you start mixing in like dubstep a little bit in there, just like a pulsing electronic backbeat in here. It just really gives this this driving energy that this war veteran and rock star has going for him. So yeah, I guess Johnny Silverhand's reveal and debut in the game is a big moment, and this music highlighting it is a big part of why.
I think more than anything, so this is just gonna be from me because this episode was a very, very long time ago. But it reminds me of some of the stuff I remember hearing in Lethally Blaze.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Like some of the deeper, heavier synths and all that. I like it. It's neat.
The next track, if we want to talk about Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, this next track is what is going to bring that right to the forefront. Critical track number 3 for Cyberpunk 2077 is The Heist. Now, I don't know if P.T. Adamczyk created his own musical instrument like Mick Gordon did on Doom. But wow, the feeling is very, very similar. I suppose it takes place during the big heist in the game. I saw people referring to Konpeki Plaza. Maybe that's part of it. But yeah, I guess that, the big heist, especially at the beginning of the game. And a lot of people were saying that, I just wanted to play stealthy, but this music kicks in and it's like, well, I guess I'm going guns blazing. Like, you kind of have to if this music is really kicking in. And boy, does it go with the feeling of rip and tear. Like, go through Night City, rip and tear. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like, to channel Doom 2016 and that kind of sound, clearly an inspiration, right? But to apply it to Night City here with some differences, maybe upping on the synths a little bit more, you're not having the Doom instrument. It's a really cool feeling, and I really liked hearing this as kind of a change of pace.
Yeah, I could hear the rip and tear in this. A more electronic rip and tear, sort of. There's less emphasis on a like heavy guitar.
Yeah, it's not a guitar being processed through the Doom instrument, right? Yeah.
It's just synths, plain and simple. And they're used to very good effect. I agree. This is a very good one, and I could definitely see it going behind a big heist scene.
On the complete other end of the spectrum, the narrative tries to play some big emotional moments in the game, and one of these tracks in particular that goes with it is number 4 here on the Critical 5. And this is Outsider No More. This track goes with the game's more emotional moments in the narrative. A lot of people seem to tie it with Panam's character arc, and that's a good question. I don't know if the game refers to as Panam or Panam, but this romantic interest for male V is referred to very highly as far as well-written characters and video game romance options go. So it's a nice point when people remember the music that's tied to a character like that and their arc. It also is notable in that this track was apparently brought back in the Edge Runners show. So I don't know if it sounds familiar at all to you, Joe, but for Cyberpunk 2077 fans who then went and transitioned to Edge Runners, for them hearing this track was a nice bit of nostalgia. Only a couple other tracks were brought in like that from the game, but I feel like it was notable for this one to be one of them. Just a nice change in the sound from using the synths and guitar in a completely different way. It's not bringing in an orchestra per se to kind of play up the emotions, but used to really good effect here.
Does sort of sound familiar. I can think of multiple moments in Edge Runners where this could have played and fit just fine, but my gut is saying it plays in the first episode as the main character's life is sort of unraveling and a lot of terrible stuff is happening to him that pushes him basically into the plot of the show. It's got a lot of moments where this could fit, and I do, at least the beginning, I feel like I have heard before, at the very least.
Well, that's neat. I was wondering if that would play with you. But to wrap things up, number 5 on the Critical 5 here, let's get to the end credits, and this is a track called Never Fade Away. A lot of people regard this as a very good end credit theme. I'll take their word for it. I like the sound of it. I feel like it doesn't have as much impact when you haven't played the game, but that sure is an ending with some different stark possibilities to it depending on what you choose to do with your V. And for it to kind of stick the landing for a lot of fans with this end credit theme, which is composed by P.T. Adamczyk, it is noted as the Samurai cover, as if the band in the in-universe band Samurai is covering an original composition of it. It features Olga Jankowska on vocals, and it gives me a lot of vibes of Churches with music that we've heard from Lauren Mayberry and her band there. But good song. I enjoy listening to it, but apparently it just really amps up on the emotions that you're feeling on that ending of the game.
I could see context making me like the song more. I think it's fine. I think it's a fine song. I can't speak for the Churches comparison. I'm pretty sure I've maybe heard one Churches song ever. Ever. And I think it was on this show, but I don't remember what game it would have been.
Probably would have been Death Stranding.
Probably. Yeah, actually, that is correct. That is the one. That's the one Churches song I've ever heard, and I could not even hum it for you if I tried. Yeah, I could see this, like, if it ends on sort of a somber note, kind of, I could see this fitting very well. I don't know how Cyberpunk 2077 ends, but if people say this is fitting, then I will believe them. They know more than I do.
We'll just leave it at that for everyone who has played it at home. Got a couple tracks on the cutting room floor, and it's very, very different, but played at also different and poignant points. The first one, I feel like we had to include something off of the in-game radio. And you know what? I decided to go a little meta with it. So So please indulge me as this first track here on the cutting room floor is called Chippin' In. This kind of hard rock, punky sound is composed by David Sandstrom and Christopher Steen of the Swedish band Refused, who are known in-universe as Samurai. And there is a different version of this song that is included on the specific radio OSTs. I think it's on volume 3, if I remember correctly. But that version is canonically the version that was made by Samurai after Johnny passed away. But this is Johnny's version. This is supposedly Johnny Silverhand performing, and it famously played during the epic E3 2019 reveal of Keanu Reeves is in the game, and he is here on stage. So if you want to go back to that moment, maybe that'll catch your ear.
I don't remember anything about that trailer past showing Keanu Reeves in game and then him showing up and shouting, "You're beautiful," at somebody. Breathtaking. You're breathtaking. That was the thing. It's a weird... I'm pretty sure I was in California when that came out.
Yeah.
I think Matt was in the room. Yeah, Matt was there. I was not able to get a pass into the Xbox show, but Matt was in the audience of the Xbox show. So Matt was in the vicinity of Keanu Reeves for a bit. But I don't remember anything about that trailer except for that shot of the "We Have a City to Burn" and all that. This is a good song.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, the trailer was kind of like showing the moment where it went wrong and like you as V were shot with the bullet, and that's why it has the stinger at the end of "Wake up, Samurai," censoring for PG, but we got a city to burn. What a moment in E3 history. Rip in pieces.
E3, a relic of the past that keeps telling me it's going to come back, but honestly, it probably shouldn't, and it's not going to.
The last E3 in 2019, some would say.
Me and Matt killed E3. We did it. Specifically, when we were at E3, we actually talked to Bill Trinan at one point, and I joked about, like, they're never going to let us come back. And I didn't think those words would kill E3 in general, but here we are.
It was you. It was all you. The other one on the cutting room floor, this track is called "Been Good to Know Ya." Again, very different to go from "War, I'm chipping in" to this piece, which is again big on the emotions, a big, somber feeling to it. Fitting then that this is the ending sequence of the game. And you want to guess who is on that electric cello solo there?
Is it Tina Guo?
It sure would be one Tina Guo. So there she is. That's her performing. And this track is pretty well regarded by fans, especially when that ending hits you. And when it's about the fates of V and Johnny Silverhand, this track apparently involves their leitmotifs and kind of interweaves them as their fates have been interwoven. So really neat. Big shout out to Tina Guo. Electric cello. It's an interesting sound for sure. And just a good way to round things out, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I love me some good string instruments. Hearing Tina Guo on cello in anything is always a treat.
What will I never forget about Cyberpunk 2077? Well, despite how today some people think, well, now the game's playable, I feel like if you went through the gamut of 2020 in game news, and especially if you were looking forward to Cyberpunk 2077, you won't forget the news cycle of it constantly being in the news. And for what this time? Oh, did they drop another yellow image with white text on it? Like, did that really happen again? I think just going through the gamut of one of the, I don't want to say worst, but most negatively consequential game releases of all time. It's not that like the game was bad. The game was serviceable according to those that played it on PC, but it was just the one thing after another. It just could not get out of its own way with negative headlines in the press.
Yeah, in terms of disastrous launches, I think Fallout 76 still has it. I think it still has the medal. Mm-hmm. But Cyberpunk really, really tried to take it.
Yeah.
I will never forget seeing people T-pose as they drive cars, outside of the car, of course. I will never forget people learning that the cops spawn out of nowhere. They don't drive up to you, they just appear. Same with the game not having any object permanence, where you could see a guy in a shirt and then look away and look back, and he'll now be wearing a different shirt or be a different person, which is always fun. Just, I feel sorry for the devs that have to deal with it, because obviously they did not want to put it out in that state.
Oh, for sure. That was definitely like, get it out the door. We need the money influx. Like that's publishers' pressure for sure.
Yeah, like I feel sorry for the devs that have to deal with that. But man, I love disastrous AAA launches. Like, it's this, you got Fallout 76, you have Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Social media becomes fun for a little bit when these happen, with all the like bug videos and everything. And, that doesn't happen very often. So I really cherish those moments when they come out. Again, I'm very sorry, development team.
It really marked a moment in time. Yeah, that's for sure. Well, to transition to our next game, let's highlight a fan cover, a fan remix, whether it's on YouTube, OC Remix, wherever it is. And Scar Productions, SKAR, over on YouTube, did an epic metal cover of Chippin' In, featuring Jeff Loomis of Nevermore on guitar. And yep, they sure crank it up, and it sounds really cool. So please enjoy, and we'll be right back.
All right, let's go from a game that you heard about excessively upon its release to the game that none of you have heard of. This is my segment on Jack Move. Jack Move was originally released on September 8th, 2022 for PC, and then a console release on Switch, Xbox One, and PS4 would follow on September 20th, 2022. It was developed by So Romantic and published by Hype Train Digital. It is a turn-based RPG. Battle, as you would expect, is turn-based, with a basic physical attack being hack, which I find really funny because by hack they mean punching them.
Oh, okay.
But then there's also special attacks, or software as they are referred to, and enemies that largely come in three types. So attacks can come in three types, and so can enemies for the most part. There is cyberware, electroware, and wetware, and this all works on a rock, paper, scissors system. Cyberware beats electroware, electroware beats wetware, wetware beats cyberware. You can usually tell what an enemy's main type is by the color they are. Cyberware is green, electroware is blue, wetware is pink. So that's a handy little visual indicator for you. You can equip new software depending on how many blocks of RAM you have open. You start with 3 at the start, but through hardware expansions throughout the game, you can get up to 16 of them. And you can also switch out software mid-battle, but at the cost of a turn. Taking or dealing damage fills up your jack move bar, which, when full, will allow you to perform a limit break style attack, fittingly called a jack move. When activating these attacks, the player must then perform a series of simple inputs, rhythm game style, which decide the effectiveness of the move. And other than that, it plays like your typical RPG. It's not trying to do anything super new, and that's perfectly fine. The Wikipedia article, for what little there is, I'm shocked it has one, to be perfectly honest. It didn't when I put this game on the tracker at first. It does not have a plot synopsis. So I was like, well, crap, am I going to have to go look up a long play to remember the plot? And then I remembered I've written a plot synopsis. I reviewed this game on NWR when it came out.
Well, there you go.
These are my words, but they're being pulled from the NWR review. In Jack Move, you play as Noah, a hacker vigilante working on the streets of Brighttown. Together with her partner, a fellow hacker named Ryder, she spends her time messing with the overreaching corporation Monomind. In Jack Move's world, far in the past, the Earth was hit with a massive solar flare that knocked out all electronics worldwide in an event known as the Dark. And over the years, as a result, corporations like Monomind have taken the place of the government, leading to the dissatisfaction of some. When Noah's estranged father is kidnapped by Monomind, she must investigate their reasons for doing so, while also working to save her father from the company's dirty hands. And that's basically what the questions are. Can you stop Monomind, and can you get Noah's father back? And why was Noah's father kidnapped in the first place? And this is where I will ask the question I already know the answer to. What are your experiences with Jack Move?
Did not know that this was a game. Never heard of the title. But you know what? It's opportunities like this, and hopefully for you listening out there, that you get to learn about a new game and a new composer, and even more so the music that goes along with it.
Yeah, so that doesn't surprise me. I was joking before the show that I'm pretty sure the only people that played this game are the people that reviewed it. Which is a shame, because it is a very, very good game. I remember I played a demo in one of the first Steam festivals, and then I proceeded to not hear anything about it for 4 years. And then it came out in 2022, and I liked it a lot. It's really good in my opinion, because it is an RPG, but it's 5 hours long, which I refer to as a bite-sized RPG. If you want an RPG that's not going to take you to the ends of time to finish, have I got the game for you? And I really like the music. That's the main reason I want to talk about this game. But also, it was one of my favorite games of the year. I had a very good time with it. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It does a lot with the time that it has. And it's fun. It's actively fun. And the pixel art is very good. Now, when I say I didn't think that this game had a Wikipedia article, because it didn't when I checked in the past, you should know then that there's not a lot of information about this game. Nobody else played it. So I have some information. I did end up having to go look up a long play because I needed to go confirm I remembered how battle worked. So there's that, and I had to go read my own review just to remind myself, because it was a year ago, and I have terrible memory, and it just went down like that. There is a little bit of information on the game, though, such as it began development in 2012, and then that it, quote, makes use of 3D environments in conjunction with a forced perspective, video post-processing, and other artistic techniques to create the illusion of a 2D overworld. The inspirations behind the game include Golden Sun and Final Fantasy, as well as the film Hackers, which...
Yeah.
That checks out. They released a Steam demo in 2021, so when I said 4 years, I was exaggerating. But...
Felt like 4 years ago.
Considering what was happening like the year before and that year still, it might as well have been 10 years, to be honest. But that's when I first played the demo. And it reviewed generally well when it came out. It's got an 81 on Metacritic of its 5 reviews listed on Wikipedia.
What'd you give it?
I give it a 9.
Oh, okay.
9 out of 10. So I quite enjoyed this game. It was praised for its art and its music, but also its short but very focused runtime. Again, it's like 5 hours long, and its pacing is incredibly good for a 5-hour long RPG. Though sadly, as you might have guessed, it has largely flown under the radar, which is a shame because it's good. If you like RPGs, but you want something a little shorter than, say, Final Fantasy, you should check out this game. It also has a very good sense of aesthetic. I think it does a great job with that as well.
I'm feeling that for sure. Final Fantasy 16, I'm like 18 hours into it, and it's like 60% through the main quest. Like, oh, okay. It's
rated very positive on Steam. Apparently 484 reviews, which seems like a lot to me. But it's $20, and I believe it goes on sale quite often. So maybe after this episode, you might find yourself interested and go wishlist it or something. It's also on Switch, which is where I played it. Obviously, considering I did the review. But yeah, that's a great place to go. The composer for Jack Move is a man by the name of Charlie Fieber. And, okay, this is a weird one. I found a Charlie Fieber who is a musician, but looking at his Instagram, Twitter, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, even as far as looking at his LinkedIn profile, zero mention of Jack Move whatsoever. Nothing.
Makes you wonder.
And like the genre of the soundtrack fits with the genre that this artist does. A lot of like electronic stuff. But again, if this is the guy, he doesn't mention Jack Move a single time on any of his pages. There is an IMDb page for a Charlie Fieber that mentions Jack Move, a TV series called Tom Gang, and a short film called Wayfaring Stranger. But whether it is the same guy or a different Charlie Fieber, I don't know. There's no picture. And that TV series and the short film also aren't listed on any of the other guys' pages. So I genuinely have no idea. Unfortunate. I don't think I've ever run into this particular problem before, but I couldn't find anything on the composer, unfortunately.
Gosh, I searched Charlie Fieber on Twitter, and what pops up is our December 23rd, 2022 post of honorable mention number 9, Jack Move soundtrack by Charlie Fieber. So I don't know if he's even on Twitter.
The guy I found was on Twitter, but I don't know if that's the right dude. I have no idea. Maybe one day I'll find out. Probably not, though. So we're just going to jump right into the 5 critical tracks then. I told you this was going to be a short segment, and by God is it going to be a short segment. But the first track on the Critical 5 is, best place to start, Theme from Jack Move. So before I get into the track itself, I first want to make sure it is known this soundtrack is not on YouTube. It is not on Spotify. The only place it seems to be is on Steam. So I bought this soundtrack just so I could cover it on the show, which is the second time I've had to do that, actually. The first time was Heaven's Vault. I mean, I'm not saying that as like a disparaging thing. I try to buy soundtracks when I can, but it's very rare that like I have to or I can't talk about it on the show because I have no way to have you listen to them.
Yeah, just any reference point for a fan base out there, right?
So this song plays on the title screen. It's a different tone than the stuff in 2077, but it has sort of, it feels like it's in the same genre, sort of. There's not as much like electric guitar and stuff in there, but I really like the heavy drums in this one. And just in general, like this is a pretty good theme for a title screen. It does not have like a synced drop when you hit start, unfortunately, but I think it's still very effective.
I really like the instrument palette that they've chosen. I think it plays super well for, if you want to set up the dark, oppressive nature of Bright City after the dark, this is a good way to introduce it going in. Now, is this with any knowledge of what's to come? No, not necessarily, but to set up, the heavy oppressive drums are just great, and you feel like the bass and the synths. That's really, really cool. I like this a lot. I'm impressed.
Well, following that for critical track number 2, I don't know why it's called this when I'm pretty sure the area is called Bright City, but this is Bright Town. So this plays in the main overworld area of the game. There are multiple like overworld areas, but this is the one you come back to the most because this is where Noah and Ryder live. So it's got a lot of neon lights. It's got a subplot that I remember being like weirdly invested in about a woman who like meets somebody and then that person I think dies in combat or something, like they go join the military. I don't know, I don't remember, but like it's this going plot throughout the entire game that you could completely miss, and I think that this song really fits the sort of vibe of Bright Town, as like there's a lot of lights and neon and all that, but you could very much tell that these are not like the people living on the upper echelons of society, which I mean is part of Cyberpunk. And also, I just really like, I don't know what to call it, but in the clip, there's that just that one synth note.
Yes, I was going to mention it too. It's like you have this little accent that almost sounds like a horn, like a car horn, or like I think it just really represents like the city noise really well.
Yeah, it's really cool. That's basically the reason why I picked that spot to be the clip. It's just a really good song. It fits the whole like, yeah, this is kind of the crappy part of town, but also has like, but people are still having fun around here and doing stuff. So hey.
For the daily life kind of theme, which I feel like is an important one to kind of nail in RPGs, kind of like your home base in a way, like kind of where you're starting out like that. This is really catchy and just has a good energy to it. And yeah, that one synth that they're channeling into is kind of gives a little more city texture to it.
All right, let's get into some of the tracks that play during battle or after battle. But this one plays during. This is critical track number 3, Cyber Clash. This is the main battle theme for when you're just fighting regular enemies. I think this song does some really cool stuff with its percussion, honestly. And I think the percussion largely carries the song, because at least what you hear in the clip is not the most like complicated song in the world. It's got that rising synth. For most of it, that's the whole song. But I think this song brings a really good energy to battle. I think it fits very well.
Yeah, you're right. Melodically, not doing a lot here, but that's definitely where the energy went into, is like the frenetic pace of a battle and how do we represent it with different percussive instruments. That's really neat, and it's kind of nice to hear a battle theme that you're going to hear throughout the game that kind of goes in this direction. I feel like that is different, but makes it stand out.
But what happens when you win that fight? Well, I'll tell you, it's critical track number 4. This is Party Time. I love this song. This actually might be my favorite song in the game. I remember playing the demo and hearing this song and thinking, damn, I want to hear more of this. And it's so high energy and so fun. And it's a very short loop. I'm pretty sure you hear a full loop in the clip alone. I mean, it doesn't have to be a long loop. It's a victory results theme. But it's really fun, especially when it's accompanied by Noah like looking back at the player and like giving a thumbs up and a wink when the fight's over. I really like this song a lot. It has a great energy to it.
What a funny juxtaposition between the battle theme that is just like, yeah, a lot of drum stuff going on, and then party win the club, like get all the disco energy out there. And yeah, now it's like this is where all the melody was being hoarded and stored into. This is a lot of fun, and I think unlike anything we've heard so far. But this is great. I agree. Favorite so far for sure.
But then let's move into another battle theme. This is the very well named boss music. I like that this song goes in a more almost hip-hop direction compared to a lot of the other stuff. It works very well for boss fights, if I remember correctly. And there's also like this one, I don't think you hear it in the clip, but there's like this synth that's basically, it reminds me of like somebody hitting like a cowbell or something, but in synth form. And I think that sounds cool. I think the synths in this song are really, really good, but again, just like in Cyberclash, the percussion is like the star of the show, and I dig its energy a lot.
Definitely a good comparison point to make to that aspect of the battle theme. But yeah, turning it up more with what it's doing melodically. Although just ratcheting up that low synth, like, oh, we're carrying that over. Got it. But yeah, it's neat. That's a good boss theme, and I feel like that represents what it's supposed to do in the game well.
All right, tracks on the cutting room floor. I have a character theme, and then I believe an area theme. I don't 100% remember where the second one plays, but the first one is easy to know where it plays because this is Ryder's theme. Weirdly enough, I think this one is the one that's most comparable to some of the stuff we heard from 2077. Like, not full on, because, 2077 had orchestras and stuff and, like, electronic artists with a lot of resources, and this was a game made by, I'm pretty sure, like, 2 people. But, yeah, I think this sounds a lot more similar than anything else that I brought to the table for this game. And just in general, I think it's good. I remember a little bit about Ryder. I remember his backstory and everything. And this really fits the character, I think.
Yeah, I think this is kind of more what I expected this game's soundtrack to sound like when you're talking about like pixel art and it's inspired by Golden Sun and Final Fantasy. It's this kind of synth palette that I would have expected. But it's the percussion, the drum kits that Charlie Fieber's using here really stand out. And this one especially. I don't think it's like one I've really ever heard before. And it's cool and punchy.
You know what this soundtrack is, actually? It's 2077 by way of Eastward.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's a good comparison point. I like that.
Yeah, like you smashed those two very different games together. And I think it pulls it off well. But my other track on the cutting room floor is Assemble and Psych. I believe this is another section of the overworld, though where exactly I could not tell you. Again, it's been over a year, almost to the day, like just days over a year since I played this game. But this song is incredibly good, if not for the fact that Brighttown is like the main area that you visit the most. This would probably go on in Brighttown's place. They'd probably switch spots. But it fit more to talk about Brighttown of the Critical 5. But I gotta bring this song up because it's just really, really good.
It's like the dark and grungy counterpart, especially with the ta-ta-ta. Again, it's the percussion. It's so cool and different. I like it a lot. And yeah, if your Cyberpunk cross Eastward comparison hadn't been made yet, I feel like this would have only cemented it for sure.
Mm-hmm. So will I never forget about Jack Move? Oh, this soundtrack's fantastic. It is a shame that it just sort of seemed to not find an audience. It's another one of those indie games where I talk about it and people are like, okay, Grandpa, let's get you to bed. Because I'm the only one that's heard of it. But I do genuinely recommend Jack Move if you like RPGs and want something that's going to be a little bit shorter, a little bit more bite-sized. And I think the soundtrack alone, and also the battle system, is also a lot of fun. Like, just generally, I think Jack Move is very, very much worth your time.
Yeah, it sounds really neat. And I think a really good recommendation to pair it with Cyberpunk 2077 for this week, outside of the whole, like, they're both Cyberpunk games, or Night City, Bright City. Like, we kind of knew what we were doing there, but just a good counterpoint, I think, to the music as well. And that's a really good addition to the show.
Yeah, the origin of this getting put on the schedule is I've wanted to talk about it for a while, and then I saw you were doing Cyberpunk, and I was like, well, not going to get a better opportunity than this. So there it is.
I mean, fitting to talk about it on Phantom Liberty Week. And that will do it for us this week on Original Soundchat. You can find me on Twitter at PeteSpeakEasy. Joe is over at StringPixel. The video version of the show is on the Rhymes with Asia YouTube channel, but it's that MP3 podcast version that you want, and that's hosted by Anonymous Dinosaur at anondino.squarespace.com. That's where Joe's other podcast, Smasherpieces, is hosted, and you can find Smasherpieces and original Soundchat wherever you get your podcasts on catchers all around the globe, from Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, even on Spotify, where we have a feed of podcast episodes, but also a video game music playlist. If we talk about a video game music track on this show and it's on Spotify, it gets added to this big monster playlist. Joe, what's being added this week?
Cyberpunk, I believe all of it is on there. Most of it should be on there at the very least. I don't know about the radio stuff, but I'm going to assume that's on there. Jack Move, I had to buy it on Steam, man. It's not on Spotify.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, when you're done listening, you can find the show on social media at Soundchat OST. You can leave some feedback for us. How are we doing with these episodes? What did we miss on our list? Give us some suggestions for games to cover in the future. Speaking of the future, Joe, who are we talking about next week?
Well, next week we enter my domain once more, and I will be opening the season with Questa.
It is October indeed. I might not be able to make it, but if I do, I'm going to be talking about The Flight. All right, Joe, let's play us out.
I didn't find any remixes from this game, which, again, is one of those where it's like, man, if more people knew this soundtrack, like, imagine some of the remixes that could exist. The music's already really good as it is. So I just put another track down. I don't know when this plays. I think it might be a late game boss, if not the final boss. But also, part of the reason why it's here is because I want to say its name, which is Post-Contemporary Death Glitch Electrofunk. So yeah, enjoy that.
Thank you so much for listening this week on Original Sound Chat. We'll see you next time. Take care.